Alright, this video is bound to upset people, isn't it? Today we're going to be ranking championship stadiums in my personal opinion from worst to best. I want to hear from you guys in the comments down below. What do you think are the best and worst stadiums in the championship? And before we dive into anything today, don't take this too seriously. It's only for a little bit of fun and it is highly subjective. What you personally like in a stadium might not be the same as me. But based on a number of different factors, I've pieced together a 1 to 24 that I'm pretty happy with. Before we jump into the video as well, a quick call to action. If you're not already subscribed, make sure to go ahead and do so. Over 72% of you guys who watch the videos aren't subscribed right now, so make sure to hit that button. But without any further ado, let's jump into the ranking. Starting out in 24th, I'm going to go for the Kassam Stadium, home of Oxford United. Now I am really excited to have Oxford in the championship ahead of next season, but stacking up their stadium to the other 23, it doesn't quite compare. Obviously, the only ground in the championship that doesn't have four ends. One of the sides behind the goal there, you're literally looking at a car park. With a capacity of 12,500, it's the second smallest ground in the championship as well, so no offence to Oxford, but I'm going to put that in 24th. In 23rd place, I'm going to put Kenilworth Road. Now, to be fair, Kenilworth Road definitely has a certain charm that not many other grounds in the championship have. But once again, stacking it up to some of the other grounds that we're going to be going through in today's video, it doesn't quite stand up, does it? And I mean, Luton themselves will be moving into a new stadium, so they'll be leaving this behind eventually. It's going in 23rd for me. 22nd place, I'm going to go for Home Park. I struggled with this placement quite a bit, to be honest with you. The next few teams were all very close and I was jumbling them all about a few times, but eventually I did land on the Plymouth Stadium in 22nd place. By no means a bad stadium, but a couple of factors just led to me putting this one down in the ranking a little bit. I definitely feel like capacity-wise, Plymouth could do with a bigger stadium. I feel like that fan base has almost outgrown this ground as it is right now. There is a certain charm to that and you get a good atmosphere in there as well, but someone had to go in here. I'm sticking Plymouth in there. 21st place, I'm going to go for the MKM Stadium. Now, I do have a couple of different viewpoints on this. If I was ranking this by the away day experience only, and it wasn't just based on stadiums per se, Hull will be a lot higher up in this ranking. As away days go, I actually quite enjoy Hull away. Get some brilliant food at that stadium. I think it's always a laugh there. It's a decent away end. I quite like Hull fans as well. I think you can have a bit of banter with them. The drawback for me though is just I'm not a huge fan of that stadium. Don't get me wrong, it's nothing awful or offensive, but it's a modern stadium that doesn't quite have that same charm that some of the stadiums higher up on this list have for me. On a similar line of thinking, in 20th place, I've put the Coventry Building Society Arena. Once again, as an away day, it's a massive away end that you get given there, but as a stadium itself, I do think it lacks the personality and charm that a lot of traditional stadiums have. I think that Coventry have done well in recent years to add that bit more personality with the ticket sales obviously going up in recent years, but before that it always felt a little bit soulless. I think when comparing this ground to Coventry's older stadium especially, Highfield Road wins every day of the week for me as a stadium design. In 19th place, I've gone for the Swansea.com Stadium, a tidy modern ground, a fairly compact one with a capacity of just over 21,000. Nice modern facilities, but doesn't quite have the charm that will make me put it much higher in this list. 18th place, I'm going for the Cardiff City Stadium. It is one of the bigger grounds in the championship with a capacity of over 33,000. Is it a little bit boring though as stadiums go? I think it is. Despite being the 5th biggest ground in the league, it doesn't quite have that grand sort of feeling that some of the other bigger stadiums have. Another one that's a bit of a generic design as well. In 17th place, I'm going to go with the Den, a ground I quite like as it goes. You've got all 4 stands in that stadium which are in sort of the same design, and the 2-tiered system which goes around the ground holds just over 20k. While I am quite fond of the Den, I'm really excited about the redevelopment plans. The sort of architect's imagination of what that ground could potentially look like in the future is, yeah, really quite snazzy. In 16th place, I'm going to go with Ewood Park, home of Blackburn Rovers. I think it does lose a few points because the stadium is probably too big for where that fan base is at the moment. When you do get so many empty seats in a stadium, it does take away something from the ground itself, I think. But the overall design of Ewood Park I quite like. You get a massive section in the away end as well, which I'm a really big fan of. And on the whole, I definitely prefer that sort of stadium design as compared to sort of just a generic bowl. In 15th place, I'm going to go for the Bet365 Stadium, home of Stoke City. Got a capacity of just over 30,000. In terms of the actual stadium itself, I've always been quite a fan of Stoke. Really like the away end there, although I think Stoke have got plans to move the away fans, haven't they, for next season? Biggest drawback with this ground is there's really not that much going on after you leave the stadium. Around the ground, there's not a whole lot. 14th on this list, I've gone for Loftus Road. I really struggle with the placement of this stadium because I've got such extreme opinions about it, about different aspects of the ground. With a capacity of just over 18,000, it is one of the smaller grounds in the Championship. There are some creaky parts, and if you don't sit in the right part of the stadium, you won't see a lot of the pitch. But on top of that, I love the compact feel of this ground. I feel it does give Loftus Road a certain uniqueness that is lacking in a lot of other Championship stadiums. There are some obvious flaws to it though, which is why I can't bump it up too high, but around about 14th, and on the whole, I do quite like it. Coming in 13th place, I'm going to go for the Riverside. I think compared to a lot of the other more modern stadiums, which I'm not always a bigger fan of, I think this one does feel that a little bit more lived in for whatever reason, which has made me bump it up a little bit. Obviously, as the name suggests, on the Riverside, a nice location for the ground as well. Atmosphere whenever I've been to Borough away has always been really good as well. That section that sits behind the goal that's sort of next to the away fans is always really good. Only real gripe with this ground is where the away fans are placed, but other than that, I think it's decent as modern grounds go. In 12th place, I've gone for Pride Park. Now, in terms of actual stadium designs, Pride Park and the Riverside are almost exact copies of one another. That's why I've put them next to each other on the list. In terms of personal preference, I think I probably do slightly prefer Pride Park to the Riverside. Not much to separate those two as grounds though. I think they're both nice looking modern stadiums. In 11th place, I've gone for Turf Moor. I've only been to Burnley away once and we got absolutely battered, but in terms of actual stadiums, I do like a historic one, and that's what Turf Moor is. A couple parts of the ground maybe could do with a lick of paint here or there, but I like the fact that in this stadium, every stand is pretty unique. You get a really good atmosphere behind that goal as well when it's the away and home fans split over that stand. Don't have that many complaints over Turf Moor. Into my top 10, coming in 10th place, I'm going to go for Vicarage Road. I like the uniqueness to this stadium. I like the colour scheme, the contrast of the yellow and red seats. Like I was saying with the Burnley ground before, I like the uniqueness of each stand. I think it gives this ground that bit of character and overall charm. When a stadium has proper floodlights as well, that's always a win. Vicarage Road gets a thumbs up from me. Homing in 9th place, I've gone for Fratton Park. This was the part of the video where I struggled to differentiate a lot of the next stadiums. Really, from 9 upwards in this list, I really like all of the remaining stadiums. As one of the smaller grounds in the Championship, Fratton Park definitely has a certain charm to it. Love the design pattern they've got on the seats here. The exterior to this stadium I think is really nice and classic as well. One ground I'm really hoping to get to in the near future. Coming in 8th place, I've gone for Carrow Road, another ground which I really don't have anything bad to say about. Norwich fans are packing this ground out week in, week out. I love the colour scheme of this one. Proper floodlights, and with a capacity of over 27,000, holds a lot of fans as well. Only thing that drags this one down maybe a little bit for me is the placement of away fans. I always prefer it when away fans are right behind the goal. Other than that though, big fan of this ground. Coming in 7th place, I've gone for Ashton Gate, a ground which I've always really liked. I've said it in previous videos, but I like the whole redevelopment of this ground. I think they've been able to take Ashton Gate into the modern era while still remaining that classic sort of feel about a lot of the ground. The city of Bristol in general I think is really nice. I've only been to Bristol City away once, but thoroughly enjoyed my time there, and that gets my 7th ranking on this list. In 6th place, I'm going to go with Deepdale. Of course, there's a bit of bias in here with me being a Preston fan, but I'm there at Deepdale every other week, and I genuinely think in terms of stadium design, this is one of the best stadiums in the Championship. The massive floodlights, the design pattern it's got with the legends on each stand. Away fans get a massive away end as well, which they can always generate a really good atmosphere in. There are some downsides to Deepdale though, which would be silly of me not to touch on. Some of the stadium definitely needs a lick of paint, leaky roofs all over the ground as well. But ignoring some of that, it's still one of my favourite stadiums in the Championship. Coming in 5th place, I'm going to go for the Stadium of Light. This is where we really are getting into the big juggernauts of championship stadiums now. With a capacity of 49,000, it is by far and away the biggest ground in the championship, and I think you feel that when you step into it. My only gripe with this one is how high up the away fans are and how isolated the away fans sort of feel from the rest of the stadium. Means you can't really have any banter with the home fans when you're in that away end in the gods. That's the only sort of flaw I can sort of pick out with this one. Coming in fourth on my list, I've gone for Hillsborough, one of the most traditional and definitely famous stadiums in the championship. With a capacity of just under 40,000 as well, it is the second biggest ground in the championship. I do absolutely love the stadium design here, the blue theme throughout it. Drawbacks of this ground, is it looking a little bit aged in some parts? Probably, but I do think the almost rustic feel makes Hillsborough into what it is today. Third favourite ground in the championship, I'm going to go with the Hawthorns. As a North End fan visiting, I've been there a couple of times and I've loved it on every occasion. I really do think this one is a brilliant stadium. The whole ground, I think from outside to in, has a really nice feel to it. Can tell they've done some work on upgrading that ground in certain parts while they've been a Premier League club, but it still holds down that traditional feel as well. My second favourite stadium in the championship, I'm going to go for Ellen Road. With a capacity of just over 37,000, it's the third biggest stadium in the championship, and you definitely feel that, especially nowadays when you do get a packed out home end. The atmosphere is absolutely brilliant, probably the best in the championship. The whole stadium does have that sort of Premier League feel to it, but not in a way that loses any of its character. The ground itself dates back to 1891. That's coming in second on my list. But coming in top spot as the best stadium in the championship, for me personally, I think it's Bramall Lane. I really do. This is one of the most historic grounds in football history that dates all the way back to 1855. I've been to Sheffield United away a few times now, and the overall feel to this ground, I just think is absolutely brilliant. The whole design to the stadium is ace. It's steeped in history, but doesn't feel too aged or worn down either. Everyone's got their own personal preferences, but for me personally, I'm putting that at number one. Well guys, there you have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Like I said at the start, don't take this one too seriously. It's just for a little bit of fun. Do get your rankings in the comments down below though. I'd be interested to see. And other than that guys, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next one.